Good afternoon. I'd like to talk a little bit about the legal constraints on risk communication, our topic for the weekend. I want to try to provide an overview of the topic and suggest some ways that we can use our study of legislation as a way to increase our understanding of risk communication. Let me start by noting that these actions and regulations that we see make up a web of both enforcement and justification and support for risk efforts. That is, while they provide lawmakers and regulators tools to identify areas where violations occur, they also, because of the research they represent, are a codification of our ideas about what hazards exist in the workplace and in the environment. So a good way to see them is to think of them as our best thinking about hazards to the general public. That said, a useful approach to these regulations would be a critical one. As we always ask questions about sources, validity of data, and research methods, we should also ask about these areas in regards to legislation. Our reading of Killingsworth, for example, this week gives us some idea of how a critique might occur. So the follow-up for these sources would be to require us to find scholarly or trade sources that ask important questions in regard to these legislative sources. If you do this, keep track of the questions you find when you read other critics, because you can use them as we approach the cases that we do approach later in the semester. You may even find yourself agreeing with a critic and asking questions, something like the following. How might this legislation miss some aspect of communication in a situation that you're studying? What communicative aspects of government policy or regulations or legislation mandate a theory of communication that you find to be unproductive? So there you'd be using your theorizing strengths as a way of saying this may not work in some situations. Where might legislation and regulations affect the kinds of risk communication that you see? Where is the risk communicator following the law, and what are the costs of doing this? Because you'll find that materials will be provided that are there as a part of compliance, maybe rather than responding to the needs of the stakeholders. So in sum then, taking a critical approach to legislation and the recognition of hazards, the regulation of hazards, you can help you understand and use these sources as ways of understanding the shape of risk communications that you encounter.